Ellis Brandt was not a hero. He was a scout, a man who followed coordinates and reported anomalies. He did not believe in fate or miracles, just fuel levels and calm static. But on the 17th rotation over Varelli's moon, his sensors caught a flicker, something small and dying in Sector 9. A heat signature too weak to be a ship, too steady to be debris, circled lower against protocol. The Human Alliance had declared Varelli's a dead zone after the last skirmish with the Thorn fleet. Nothing moved there, nothing lived. The surface was glassed black from orbital fire and the air tasted like burnt metal, even through filters, but Ellis had always been curious too. Curious for his own good. His commander said. The dropship groaned as it cut. Through thin atmosphere, dust swirled in angry spirals below him. He landed near the signal source, boots crunching on cooled slag. The wreckage was half buried, a pod no bigger than a cargo crate. Its hull charred and cracked but still humming with a low pulse like a heartbeat. He pried open the hatch with a crowbar. The metal screamed, then gave way inside. Curled against the far wall was a child. She was small, no older than 6 by human measure. Her skin pale, almost translucent with a faint silver sheen. Her hair was white like ash and her ears rose to sharp points beneath it. She wore a tattered suit that shimmered like oil on water. Her eyes were closed, but her chest rose and fell steady and slow in her arms. She clutched something round, and dark, an egg maybe, or a stone. Ellis crouched. He did not reach for her. Not yet. He knew better than to startle survivors, especially alien ones, but she was alone. No adults. No distress beacon, no rescue signal. Just her and this broken pod in a graveyard. Avori checked his comm static. Only the Alliance would not send help, even if he called. They had orders. No retrieval, no contact with non-human life forms after the treaty collapse, anything. Not human was considered hostile or worse, irrelevant. Looked at the girl again. She had not moved, but her fingers tightened around the egg as if she heard his thoughts. He made his choice. He wrapped her in a thermal blanket, carried her to the dropship, and sealed the hatch behind him. She did not wake, not even when the engines roared to life and lifted them from the dead moon back on Marlow Station, a fringe colony orbiting a quiet star. Ellis filed a false report. Debris sweep, negative findings. No survivors. He rerouted power to a disused maintenance bay tucked behind hydroponic Sector 3. There he built a small room with a cot, a heater, and a filtered air unit. He called it the nest. The girl woke 3 days later. She sat up slowly, eyes wide and silver like liquid mercury. She did not scream. She did not cry. She just looked at him as if measuring his soul. Ellis held out a cup of warm broth. She took it with both hands, sipped silently, then set it down. She pointed to herself, then to the egg still clutched to her chest. He waited. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out, just a soft hum that vibrated in the air between them. It was not a word, but it felt like one. He nodded. You need a name, he said. She tilted her head. Something simple, he said, something that fits. She thought of the way she moved, quiet and light like a bird startled from grasslark, he said. She blinked once, then gave the smallest nod. So she became Lark. Weeks passed. She learned fast. She mimicked his gestures, pointed to objects until he named them: water, light, door, food. She never spoke, but her eyes said everything. She watched the station workers through the observation window, studied the way plants grew in the hydroponic domes, traced the stars on the ceiling with her fingers at night. Ember, the egg, stayed with her always. It sat on a shelf by her cot, warm to the touch, though no heat source touched it. Sometimes it pulsed faintly like a slow heartbeat. Ellis asked no questions. He gave her space-time safety things. No one had given him as a boy. But safety never lasted. One evening as he returned from a supply run, he found Lark standing in the middle of the bay. The lights above her flickering in rhythm with her breathing, the air thick with static. She turned to him, eyes wide. Not with fear, but with something deeper, understanding maybe, or memory. That night the comms crackled with news. The Thorn fleet had been sighted near the outer rim. Not attacking, just watching Gellies. Knew then that Varelli's was not the end. It was only the beginning, and Lark was not. Just a survivor, she was a secret. He watched her sleep that night, curled around the egg ember, as she called it in her silent way. The name had come to her in a dream. She had drawn it in the condensation on the window. He did not know what she was or where she came from, but he knew this, he would not let them take her again, not while he still breathed. The station hummed around them, a fragile bubble of warmth in the cold dark outside. The stars burned indifferent. But inside, for now, they were safe, and that was enough. Lark grew fast, too fast for a human child by the time 3 years had passed. She stood as tall as Ella's shoulder and moved with a grace that made even the station cats pause to watch her. She still did not speak, but her silence was never empty. It hummed with meaning like a wire tuned to a frequency only some could hear. Ember the egg finally cracked on a night when the station lights dimmed for maintenance, a soft sound like ice splitting underfoot. Ellis woke to find Lark kneeling beside, yet her hands cupped around the shell as if holding breath itself. From the split emerged a creature no bigger than a house cat, its scales the color of cooled lava, its eyes wide and gold, like liquid sunlight. It made no sound, but warmth bloomed in, the room so sudden and thick that frost on the vents melted in seconds. Lark touched its head with one finger. The creature leaned into her palm and let out a sigh that smelled of ozone and summer rain. Ellis named it Ember, not because it breathed fire, but because it carried heat like a living hearth. The two became inseparable. Ember followed Lark everywhere, curling around her shoulders while she worked in the hydroponic domes or trailing behind her as she walked the service corridors. Its presence calmed the agitated plants. The tomatoes grew sweeter, the wheat stalks taller, and the old lemon tree in Sector 3, which had not bloomed in years, suddenly burst into white flowers one morning. People noticed. First it was just whispers, among the botanists, then the engineers, then the security detail. They said the orphan girl had strange eyes, that she never blinked enough, that sometimes the lights flickered when she passed. They said her pet was not a pet at all, but something else. Something. Old Ellis heard the rumors, but he said nothing. He kept Lark away from crowded areas, limited her access to public decks, and rerouted their walks to the lower maintenance tunnels where few ever went. But Lark was not a prisoner. She was a student. He learned to read from old data pads Ellis salvaged from decommissioned ships. She traced letters with her fingers, then wrote them in dust on metal floors. She understood numbers faster than words, and soon she was helping Ellis calculate fuel ratios and atmospheric mixes for the dropship day. She pointed to a star chart on his wall, then to a blank patch near the Remellis. Frowned. That sector is uncharted. Lark shook her head. She tapped the blank space, then drew a symbol in the air. 3 interlocking rings. He did not understand, but he logged it. That night, Ember glowed faintly while sleeping, a soft pulse of amber light that matched the rhythm of Lark's breathing. As the years passed, Lark's abilities deepened. She began to sense things before they happened. Once she tugged Ellis away from a cargo lift moments before its cable snapped. Another time she stood at the observation window staring into the void, then turned and pulled him to the comms room just as a distress signal crackled through static, a freighter adrift with failing oxygen. She never explained how she knew. She just knew. Be age 12, she could calm storms in the hydroponic domes. Not real storms, but the violent electrical surges that sometimes spiked. During solar flares, she would stand in the center of the dome, hands outstretched, and the air would still. The lights would steady, and the plants would sigh as if relieved. The station chief, a grizzled woman named Maeve, started leaving small gifts. At their door, dried fruit, hand-stitched gloves, a music box that played a lullaby from old Earth. She never spoke to Lark directly, but her eyes held no fear. Only wonder. Ellis knew they could not hide forever. The Alliance had eyes everywhere, even on fringe colonies like Marlow. And then came the day the scanners lit up, not with warships but with something smaller, sleeker. Silent, a scout drone painted black with no markings. It circled the station for 6 hours, then vanished. Ellis checked the logs. No signal, no hail, no identification. But Lark knew. She stood at the window long after the drone was gone, her face pale. Her fingers clenched around Ember, who hissed low in his throat, a sound like steam escaping stone. That night she drew more symbols. On the floor this time with charcoal, a tall figure with pointed ears, a ship shaped like a thorn. A broken moon. Ellis recognized Virelli's. She was remembering, or warning. He began to reinforce the nest, adding extra shielding to the walls, installing a hidden exit through an old coolant pipe. He taught Lark hand signals for danger, for run, for hide. She learned them fast, but she did not seem afraid, only watchful, like a bird before a storm. On her 13th birthday, Maeve brought a cake small with real, Sugarlark touched it, then looked at Maeve and smiled. It was the first time Ellis had seen her smile. Murmurs grew louder after that. Some workers crossed the hall when they saw her coming. Others left offerings at the hydroponic entrance fruit flowers, scraps of cloth woven into tiny stars. They did not understand what she was, but they felt her presence like a shift in the air before Rain Ember grew too. No longer a kitten-sized creature, but the size of a large dog. His scales darkened to deep crimson, and his eyes burned brighter, though he never harmed anyone. He slept coiled around Lark's bed like a living Wallone. Evening Ellis found her on the roof access platform, a place few used because of the thin atmosphere. She stood at the edge looking up at the stars. Ember beside her. He joined her. She pointed to a star not on any human chart. He followed her finger. Nothing there, just black. But then he felt it, a faint pull in his chest like a memory. He never had. She turned to him and placed her hand over his heart, then over her own. Same beat, same silence. He understood then she was not just surviving. She was waiting for what he did not know. But the drone had been a scout, and scouts never came alone. Back inside, he checked the comms again. Nothing, but the air felt heavier, like the calm before a warlark went to bed that night without her usual routine. She did not wash her face or brush her hair. She just lay down, Ember curling around her, like Armorelli's sat by the door, rifle across his lap. Did not sleep outside the station, turned its slow orbit around the quiet stair inside. The heat from Ember kept the cold at bay, but not the fear. Because Ellis knew now, they were no longer hidden, and whatever was coming, it would not ask nicely. The sky tore open without warning. No alarms, no comms chatter, no blaring sirens, just a sudden silence as if the stars themselves held their breath. Ellis was in the mess hall drinking bitter coffee when the lights dimmed, then steadied, then dimmed. Again in a slow pulse like a dying heart, he dropped the cup and ran. The time he reached the observation deck, Lark was already there, standing at the window, hands flat against the glass, Ember coiled at her feet, scales dull as if absorbing the light around him. Moatside 3 ships hung in the void. They were not Alliance vessels. They were long and black like thorns driven into flesh. No markings, no running lights, no weapon ports, just smooth obsidian surfaces that swallowed starlight. They made no sound. They did not move, they simply were, and everyone on the station felt it, a cold pressure in the chest, a weight behind the eyes, as if the air had turned to ice. Lark did not flinch. She turned to Ellis and touched his arm. Once, then walked toward the main airlock. No, he grabbed her wrist. He looked at him, not with fear but with certainty. They are here for me. She signed the words, slow and clear, her fingers shaping each letter in the air. He shook his head. They do not know you are here. She pointed to her chest, then to the ships. They know. Murmurs spread through the station. Workers gathered in clusters, faces pale, eyes wide. Some prayed, some wept. Others packed bags, though there was nowhere to run. Marlow Station had no weapons, no shields, no escape pods beyond the few dropships in Bay Formeve. The station chief found Ellis in the corridor, her face grim. Who are they? He did not answer. She looked past him to Lark, standing alone in the center of the hall. Ember circling her like smoke. Is she the reason? Nodded. Maeve exhaled, then placed a hand on his shoulder. If they want her, they will have to go through all of us. But Lark was already moving. She walked to the comms room, bypassed the lock with a touch that made the panel flicker, and opened a channel not with words but with a low hum that vibrated through every speaker on the station. The ships responded, not with weapons, not with threats, but with silence deeper than before. Then one ship drifted forward. A ramp unfolded from its belly and figures stepped out, tall, slender. Their skin pale like bone, their eyes black with silver centers. They wore no armor, only flowing robes that shimmered like oil on water. Their ears rose to sharp points just like Lark's. They did not carry weapons. They did not need to. Their presence alone made the air thin, and cold. Workers stumbled back, gasping as if starved of oxygen. Ellis pulled his rifle, but Lark stepped in front of him. She walked toward the airlock alone. Ember followed. The outer door hissed open, cold, flooded in, but Lark did not shiver. She stopped 10 paces from the ramp. The tallest figure stepped forward. It raised a hand. Not in greeting, but in command. Lark stood still. The figure spoke not with sound but with thought words pressed directly into the minds of all who listened. Child of Ash, you were spared once, do not make us regret it. Lark tilted her head. She placed a hand on Ember's head. The creature growled low, a sound like stone grinding under earth. The figure paused. You have bonded with the vessels, he nodded. The vessel was meant to be destroyed. She shook her head. The truth lives in it. The figure went still. For the first time, its eyes flickered. You remember. She touched her temple. Then her chest. I remember everything. The figure stepped closer. Weapon in your blood must not awaken. The Alliance will use it to burn the stars. We cannot allow that. She took a breath. You burned our world to stop them. The figure did not deny it. We saved what could be saved. You left me. A pause. You were too young to carry the burden. I was never too young. The air thickened. Ember's scales began to glow faintly. Amber light spreading like dawn. The figure raised both hands now. Not in command, but in warning. Do not force our hand, child. She took one step forward. I am not your child. The station trembled, not from engines or weapons, but from something deeper. A resonance building in the walls, in the pipes, in the bones of everyone watching. Ellis felt it in his teeth. Maeve gripped the railing until her knuckles turned. White, the figures exchanged glances. They had not expected this. They had come for a frightened girl. They found a woman, unbroken. Unbowed Lark raised her arms. Not in surrender, but in offering. The truth is not yours to bury, Embers. Glow brightened. The obsidian ship shuddered. A crack appeared on the lead vessel's hull, thin as a hair but growing. The figures stepped back. For the first time in centuries, they felt fear. Not of weapons, not of war, but of memory, of what she carried inside her. The last echo of a dead world. The key to a weapon that could end all war, or begin a new one. Lark lowered her arms. Go, she signed. Tell them I am ready. The figures hesitated. Then without another word, they turned and boarded their ship. The ramp closed. The ships lifted silently into the void and vanished. The station exhaled. Workers collapsed to their knees, sobbing, laughing, clutching each other. Ellis ran to Lark. She was pale, sweat on her brow. But her eyes were clear. She touched his face, then pointed to the stars. They will return. Nodded. She looked at Ember, who nuzzled her hand. This was only the warning. The real storm was coming, and this time, the Alliance would not stay away. The silence after the Thorn ships left was heavier than their presence. No one spoke for hours. Workers moved like ghosts through the corridors, eyes wide, hands trembling. Some avoided the observation deck entirely, as if the void outside might reach in and pull them away. Ellie stayed with Lark in the nest. She sat on the floor, cross-legged, Ember curled in her lap. His usual warmth dimmed as if drained by the encounter. She did not sleep. She traced symbols on the metal floor again. But these were different. Not the rings or thorns from before. These were layered spirals that seemed to shift when looked at too. Longellies watched her. He wanted to ask what they meant, but he knew words were not the right tool. Instead, he brought her water, food, a blanket. She took them without looking up. Hers passed. Then a chime echoed through the station, not an alarm, a comms hail official frequency. Alliance Commandellis. Froze Lark looked up. Her eyes said it before the speaker did. They know Maeve appeared at the tower, face tight. They are hailing from the Prometheus relay ship 10 minutes out. Ellis cursed under his breath. They must have detected the Thorn ships, or worse, they had been watching all along. Lark stood. She walked to the small mirror on the wall and studied her reflection, not with vanity but with purpose. She braided her white hair tightly down her back, then tied the end with a strip of red cloth Maeve had given her months ago. Ember rose and shook himself, scales flaring bright for a moment. Then settling into a deep, steady glow, she turned to Elise. Have to face them. He shook his head. They will take you. She placed a hand on his chest. They will try. Maeve stepped forward. We will stand with you. Lark gave the smallest nod. The Prometheus was not a warship, but it carried Marines and an envoy. A woman named Captain Voss, sharp-eyed and sharper-tongued. She had dealt with fringe colonies before, and did not suffer secrets. She boarded with 4 armed guards. They marched through the airlock like they owned the station. Workers parted before them. Ellis met them in the central hub, Lark beside him. Ember at her heels. Captain Voss stopped 10 paces away. Her eyes locked on Lark's. This is the ghost of Varellis. Lark did not flinch. Voss turned to Ellis. You hid her for 17 years, he said nothing. Voss stepped closer. Do you have any idea what she is? Ellis met her gaze. She is Lark. Voss snorted. She is a weapon. Lark raised her hand, not in threat, but in question. Voss hesitated. The girl is not a weapon. She signed slowly. Voss laughed. The Thorn Fleet does not visit dead moons for orphans. Child Lark looked past her to the stars visible through the window. They came for the echo. Voss went still. What echo? Lark touched her own chest. The last memory of my world. Voss exchanged a glance with her second. Then she stepped forward. Voice low. The Alliance has records. The Varelians built a bioweapon. A living key that could unlock the core of their planet and turn it into a star killer. They destroyed their own world. To keep it from us. Lark shook her head. They destroyed it to keep it from everyone, including themselves. Voss narrowed her eyes. And you have it. Lark nodded. But it is not a weapon. It is a choice. Voss scoffed. Everything is a weapon, if you hold it right. Ember growled low, the sound vibrating through the floor. The guards raised their rifles. Lark raised a hand. Stop. The word did not come from her mouth. It came from the air itself. The lights flickered. The rifles froze in the guards' hands, metal, groaning as if resisting their grip. Voss paled. Lark stepped forward. The egg was not mine, she signed. It was a vessel of prison for the last sentient core of my world. I have been its guardian, not its wielder. Voss swallowed. And the Thorn Fleet, they want it destroyed because they are afraid. Afraid of what? That someone will force the choice, that someone will make the core burn. Voss was silent. Tellis spoke for the first time. She has never used it, not once, not even to save herself. Voss looked at Lark long and hard. Then she lowered her hand. The guards released their rifles. The tension broke like glass. Voss exhaled. The Alliance will not let this go. No. You will be taken to Earth for study. Another word hung in the air. Lark stood straighter. I will not be caged. Voss shook her head. You do not understand the stakes. Lark pointed to Ember. He is not a pea. He is the core made flesh. The last voice of a dead world. And I am its keeper. Voss stared. You expect me to believe that? Lark closed her eyes. Then she sang, not with her voice, but with her Bonice, a low tone that resonated through the station. Metal groaned. Lights pulsed. Plants in the hydroponic domes turned toward the sound as if toward the sun. Ember's glow flared bright enough to cast shadows. And in that light everyone saw it. Not a girl. Not a weapon, but a bridge between what was lost and what could be. Voss stepped back, her face unreadable. You have a choice, she said quietly. Hand over the core, or be declared enemy of the Alliance. Lark looked at Ellis, then at Maeve, then at the workers watching. From the shadows she turned back to Vossi. Choose to stay. Voss nodded slowly. Then you leave me no choice. She turned to her guards. We withdraw. The guards blinked. But Captain, that is an order. They boarded the Prometheus without another word. As the ship lifted away, Ellis turned to Lark. Why did she leave? Lark watched the ship vanish into the dark because she saw the truth. The core cannot be taken. It must be given. And no one has earned that gift. Not the Thorn Fleet, not the Alliance. Not yet. Ember nuzzled her hand. Looked at Ellis. They will come again. He nodded. And next time it will not be scouts or envoys. It will be war. She touched his arm. Then we will be ready. The station settled around them, quiet, but not calm. The storm was coming, and Lark would meet it. Not as a weapon, but as a witness. The war did not come with fire or fanfare. It came in silence. 3 weeks after the Prometheus left, the comms went dead. Not just static, but total silence, as if the universe had been wrapped in cloth. Then the stars began to vanish. Not one by one, but in patches like holes punched in the sky. Ellis knew what it meant. They were blocking signal. Cutting Marlow Station off, Lark stood at the observation window watching the dark spread. Ember lay at her feet. Scales dull, his usual warmth muted. She did not speak, but her hands moved in slow signs. They are surrounding you. Ellis nodded. He had spent the weeks preparing, reinforcing bulkheads, stockpiling rations, rigging the dropship for emergency launch. But he knew they would not escape. Not this time. Maeve gathered the workers in the central hub. No panic, just quiet resolve. They had chosen to stay. They would face what came together. Then the Thorn Fleet returned, not 3 ships, 30 black thorns piercing the void, and behind them from the opposite side of the station the Human Alliance arrived. A full battle group, cruisers, destroyers, carriers, all bearing the blue and silver of Earth Command. They did not fire. They simply waited like wolves circling a denlark. Walked to the airlock without hesitation. Ellis followed me, and a dozen others came too. Not to fight, but to stand to bear witness. The outer door opened. Cold air rushed. Inlark stepped onto the platform. Ember at her side. The Thorn ships lowered ramps. The Alliance ships deployed drop pods. Figures emerged from both sides, tall pale Thorn elders in flowing robes, Alliance Marines in powered armor. Captain Voss at their head. They met 20 paces from Larkno. Weapons drawn, but tension thick enough to choke on. The eldest Thorn elder stepped forward. Child, the time has come. Lark looked at him, then at Voss. You both want the same thing. Voss spoke. We want to protect humanity. The elder turned his black-silver eyes on her. And we want to protect the silence. Lark shook her head. You both want control. The core is not a tool. It is a voice. Ember lifted his head and let out a low hum that rolled through the metal platform. The stars above flickered, not from interference, but from response. A single point of light pulsed in the dead patch of sky, then another, then a dozen, as if the universe was waking. The elder stiffened. Voss paled. Lark raised her arms. The core does not choose sides, it chooses truth. She closed her eyes and sang not a song of words but of memory, of a world green and bright before the wars, of cities that sang with living stone, of children who played beneath twin suns, of the day the sky burned. And the last ship fled carrying one child and one egg. The air trembled. Ember's scales blazed. Gold light poured from him. Not fire, but pure radiant energy that did not burn but revealed every hidden thought, every secret fear, every lie. The Marines lowered their heads. The Thorn elders bowed. Voss fell to one knee. Tears on her cheeks. Ellis stood tall, tears in his eyes, but pride in his chest. Lark opened her eyes. The light faded. Ember settled beside her, glowing soft now like embers in a hearth. She looked at the elder. You came to silence me. He nodded slowly. You came to use me. Voss looked away. Lark stepped forward. I offer neither. I offer choice. The core will not be weapon, or shield. It will be witness, and those who wish to listen may stay. Those who wish to take must leave. The elder was silent a long time. Then he turned. We will go. He walked back to his ship. The Thorn fleet lifted as one and vanished into the dark. Voss stood. She looked at Lark. You could end the war with them. Lark shook her head. Peace cannot be forced. Even with truth. Voss exhaled. Then what do we do? Lark pointed to the workers behind her, to the station, to the fragile garden of humans and hope. You protect this not with guns, but with care. Voss nodded slowly. I will tell Earth Command you are not a threat. Lark smiled faintly. I am not a threat. I am a promise. Voss turned and left. The Alliance fleet withdrew. Silence returned. But it was different now, lighter, full of possibility. Ellis walked to Lark. You did not run. She looked at him. Done hiding. He touched her shoulder. What now? She looked up at the stars, now whole again. Twin suns rising on the edge of the system. Now we wait. For those who come not to take, but to learn. Ember nuzzled her hand. She turned to Ellis. Thank you for saving me. He shook his head. You saved yourself. She smiled. Then thank you for staying. He nodded. Always. The station hummed behind them, a live not just surviving, but becoming. Lark walked to the edge of the platform. Not as an orphan, not as a weapon, but as Lark of Varela, share of Ashkeeper of Light. And she faced the stars, ready for whatever came next.